Well, hey guys, how's it going? I know I've been MIA, but there's a lot going on over here. But before I went to Amazon and was semi-retired, I usually had Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday off. I only worked 3 days a week. That's why I said semi-retired. And then when the pandemic came and I went to Amazon because I owned a cleaning service and I did pretty much have to shut it down, I still had 3 days off in a row. Well, retail is so much different. I'm lucky if I get 2 days in a row off, but a lot of times you get one day, you work 3, 4 days, you get another day, you work a couple of days, and it's like that. And I find that with 2 days off, even when they're in a row, it's not enough time for me to get the things done that people normally do on their days off. Like cleaning the house, doing laundry, grocery shopping. There was a time before arthritis, I could do all of that in one day and still go out and have dinner with friends. It just takes me longer to do stuff now. Now, I have helped myself with some time because these days I just have my groceries delivered. That works for me. That way I don't have to spend one of my precious days off at the grocery store. I do take 3 days off in a row once a month so I can spend time with my daughter and my grandson. In May, I already requested 5 days off, and it's been approved, and I'm going to take a little vacation, probably to train to Chicago. No, next month, I'm taking 3 days off in a row because my grandson is going to have an in and out operation. So I like the fact that I can take time off when I need it. I really like that. So, that's why you haven't seen me. I just don't have the time. Today is a fluke and I got lucky. I was off yesterday. I don't have to be to work until 5:30 today, and then I'm off tomorrow. So I already got half my stuff done yesterday, and I can finish it up tomorrow, which gives me this extra time at home before I have to go to work. And I say, you know what? I'm going to pop out a video real quick. So, without further ado, let me tell you how we lost the family home. First of all, when my parents met, they met at work, okay? And my father was in upper management or management, and my mother was just a regular worker. So when they started dating, they got away with it for a minute. But then, company rules apply, and people in positions of power are not supposed to date people who don't have as much power. And so right about the time company made issue about it, my mother got pregnant. Okay. And so my stepfather's mother said, y'all need to get married. And so that's what they did. My mother left the job, and that's what they did. Now, at the time, my stepfather and my uncle were going to go into business and open a small record shop back when vinyl was, prevalent. So what happened was my stepfather used the money that he was going to use to go into business with my uncle to put a down payment on a house. And he made enough money that my mother didn't have to work and didn't need, and actually her name was on the deed, but she didn't, her income wasn't necessary as a qualifier for the house. And then I think it was Martin Luther King got killed. And at the time, our home was in the city, and we lived in Baltimore. And my parents wanted to get us out the city, and they decided they wanted to buy a home in the suburbs. Now, this home was a little bit more expensive, and they actually needed my step-grandmother to co-sign or put her name on the deed because they needed her income level, and her house was already paid for. So my mother's name never got on the deed of the suburban house. And then at some point, they started having problems. Now, mind you, up until this point, we had like this ideal, hallmark family. It was just the way a family was supposed to be. And then stuff happened. And yes, I know what happened, but I don't want to say what happened, but stuff happened. And all of a sudden, we're not really a family anymore. Now we're fractioned. We're grouped off. My stepfather and my brother, who is his child with my mother, and then my mother and my sister and I, which are my real father's and her ex-husband's children. And so he stopped paying for things that he used to pay for that my sister and I were doing. Things like not gymnastics, things like Girl Scouts and majorettes. I also took piano lessons and violin lessons. The only thing he did was keep a roof over our head. And we stopped being an idealized family. So my mother decided she needed to get a job. Now, I think I told you both of my parents were blind. My father was technically blind. My stepfather was technically blind, and my mother was legally blind. But they managed to find her a job in the state, a state hospital, as a dishwasher. And I remember she told us the first year or so it was really tough because her co-workers felt like she had been given special treatment. And when she did things wrong, the supervisors, kind of, just explained to her what was wrong and how she could fix it, because some of it had to do with the fact that she was legally blind. She said it was probably a year before they accepted her and realized she was not going to quit no matter what, and they were going to have to fire her, but she was going to come to work every day and do the very best job she could. When it was all said and done, my mother was there, I think, 25 years, and 7 of those years she was Employee of the Year. So yeah, my mother and I had our issues, but there are a lot of things about her that I got to give her so much credit for. So my mother had to get a job, and that's what she did. And I guess I was 10 when we moved to the suburban house, and I was probably 12 when the family fractured, and I left at 17. And my brother was 5 years younger than me, and my sister is 2 years younger than me. A couple days after my baby brother graduated from high school, one day my mother didn't come home from work. And so my brother and father, jumped in the car, and this is before cell phones and stuff like that. They're driving the route that my mother would come home, because my mother would ride the bus, and then and because we lived in the suburbs, there was only a bus that came in our area twice a day, and when she got off from work, that bus was already gone for the day. So she would walk in. Believe it or not, my mother would walk in. It was about 4 blocks that she would walk in from when she got off the first bus. And so, they're scrolling those blocks to see if she had fallen down or gotten hit or, lay dead behind a tree. Because for those of you who don't know what suburbs are, just like a subdivision has young trees and it's tree lined, suburbs have mature trees and it's tree lined, okay? And so they didn't see anything. They didn't see her. You cannot report a missing person until they had been missing for 24 hours. So the next day, my brother and father drove to my mother's job to inquire, had anybody seen her, And HR came out and told my stepfather that yes, she was there, and yes, she was safe, and no, she did not want to see them. And they said because she did not want to see them, they had to leave the property. And so basically that is how my mother left my stepfather. She just didn't come home one day. And yes, my brother was 18 legally, which is why she waited till he was 18. But psychologically, that basically broke my brother's heart, and he never forgave her. And I often wonder sometimes is if that's the reason why he doesn't really trust women, and 2, he shows them no respect whatsoever. I mean, I don't know if you all have been following the Cardi B thing. I'm not a fan, but stuff be popping up on your YouTube feed, and so you sometimes you go, oh, what's this? Both the men in her life are dogs, okay? And Sagittariuses. Well, my brother is a dog and a Sagittarius, and he has cheated on every woman he's ever been with. So, needless to say, there were a lot of bridges burnt with him and the women in his life because of the way my brother behaved. And I don't know if I mentioned, but he owned a garage for about 35 years. But it wasn't ever what I call a legit garage. He was basically a shade tree mechanic who had a real garage. So it was never legal. The last couple of years, my brother's had some health things. He has severe bronchitis, and he had to actually go on medication for it. I found out I also had bronchitis from, when the weather's really, really hot and humid or really, really frigid cold, I'll have these little coughing fits, which is how I burst the blood vessels in my eyes, because I would have these little coughing fits. They thought maybe I had lung cancer, and it turns out I didn't. And that's when they finally got diagnosed as bronchitis. So I had to buy the humidifier to put in the house. Once I did that, yeah, every once in a blue moon I'll have a coughing fit if I'm stressed. I find now it only happens if I'm stressed. But for the most part, I'm good. Because the house was too dry, the fact that I smoke, the fact that I love my margaritas, all of those things dry out your system. So the humidifier actually puts moisture back into the house, and I had to drink more water with electrolytes added. And that seems to have handled that. So I'm glad it wasn't something so serious that I'd have to go on oxygen or medication for. But my brother got sick, and then he had a stroke. Now he's recovered from the stroke, but there was a moment where he just was having the retina detached from his eye. I mean, there was a year when this man just went through so much, and he really couldn't even go to the shop because it was the fumes of all those years being in an unregulated shop that didn't have the proper ventilation is what caused him his bronchitis. So at this point, and we didn't know this, that he had gotten behind on the taxes. My stepfather and my mother, my step grandmother's name is on the deed to the house, and it was supposed to be passed down from when my grandmother died. Of course, it went to my stepfather, and then when my stepfather died, it went to my brother, and then when my brother dies, it was supposed to go to my nephew. We've had that house. The house has been in the family for 55 years. As my brother got sick, but a lot of it was because my brother went through money like nobody's business. I mean, a lot of money that never even got taxed came through that business. And my brother spent it all on loose women and cars, okay? I mean, his favorite thing was to date somebody on Section 8 and welfare, pay their little bit of bills so they could keep the money they got from welfare in exchange for him not having to do anything or have any responsibilities in that house with her kids or her or nothing except to pay the rent. And nobody was supposed to bother him, and it gave him the freedom to go out here and screw everything that walked. My brother was... That's the best way I can explain it. So my nephew moved in to help my brother out. And then it was my nephew who noticed all the bills that were coming in that my brother just ignored. And the lights got shut off. And my daughter and I are trying to figure out, and my sister, we're trying to figure out, how do you have two grown men in the house and the lights get shut off? But it happened. Anyway, and my brother's too young for Social Security. A disability has taken a minute. My nephew was trying to pay all the bills and keep the house going, but he just couldn't. And so my brother decided to sell the house. At first they told us it was just $3,000, and they said they were going to sell the house, or rather, my nephew did not want to sell the house, and they had a big fight about this. And my brother moved out and left them with all the bills at the house and moved in with my sister. And he told my sister that the house was $3,000 behind in taxes. And so my sister called my daughter and we were thinking about, could we just, because you don't want to lose the family home of 55 years over a $3,000 tax bill. And so we were talking about whether or not we could do it. But my sister doesn't have any money, okay? So basically it was when my daughter and I do it. And, we had to sit down and think about, if we did it, can they keep it up? Can they keep the bills paid? Michael don't have any money. My brother was supposed to sell his business. But it turns out he couldn't sell the business. And I told my sister I didn't see how he was going to sell the business. He doesn't own the building. All he has is his inventory of tools, and his clients don't sign contracts. You can use signed contracts as part of negotiating a business. You can use a building you own as part of negotiating a business. But if you don't have those things, then all you have is equipment. And so my brother is not really good at sharing information. My brother is one of those people that if you ask him a question, he'll ignore you. So you ask him again, and he'll still ignore you. So you ask him a third time, and the next thing you know, he says, "Why are you nagging me?" That is the personality that my brother has. And so my sister finally got the truth out that it was really $14,000, and they were going to auction the house off for taxes. So he decided to sell the house to those people that buy houses instead of going through a regular realtor, because he wasn't sure how much time he had. And so my parents bought that house 55 years ago for $30,000. And it's not a big house. It's just your typical old-fashioned, solidly built brick rancher with a garage and an acre of fenced-in land that my parents fenced in. But the value of the house was $285. And my brother sold it to those people for $150. And so bang with the family house. And I guess really he didn't have any other option, because he couldn't really sell the business. And it turns out he was behind on the rent at the shop. So the guy next door, who also has a mechanics business, wanted to take over the space. So he paid off Michael's back rent. And the landlord was happy about that and gave the guy a new contract. And Michael had to give him most of the equipment to cover the fact that he paid off the back rent. And my brother basically ended up with $300. And that's all the money he had. When he came down for Christmas, he looked like shit. He looked like he was homeless. And I asked my sister, how come he looked so bad? Why didn't he get his hair cut? And that's what my sister told me. Because, see, you know what? People don't always tell you everything. Sometimes my family's not good with sharing information. And so it don't sound right, but you can't call them a liar. Then eventually they tell you the truth. So basically, he only got $300 out of that business, and that's all he had. So my brother's been living with my sister 3 or 4 months now. The house is finally sold, signed the papers, and my sister was supposed to take him down to sign the papers, and they were going to write him a check. And my brother told her that he didn't need to take him because this girl that he's been dating off and on for 15 years was going to do it. Now, mind you, this is the same girl he cheated on every time they got together. And it's also the same girl that my family treated like crap when my brother got in a little bit of trouble about non-child support and was gone for 3 months. And the family wouldn't even give her money to pay the bills, even though they knew that my brother lived there and had been living there for 3 years and paying the bills. So at this point, I would say girlfriend probably got some deep-seated resentment. But that's the person my brother got to co-sign that check with him and put it in her bank account. That he has no access to and he has no card for. And when my brother told my sister where the check was, my sister's blood pressure went up so high that they had to call an ambulance to come and get her because she was done. She just couldn't believe he would do something so stupid. I mean, he could have very easily put it in my mother's old bank account. My sister would have given him the card for it. He could have called me. I got a couple. But he puts his trust in this woman that he has done dirty ever since. I don't even know why she kept hanging in there with him. My brother did this girl so dirty. And then my family turned around, I feel like did a little dirty too. But this is the person he trusted. And so my sister's thing is, when that check clears, she could just take all the money out and disappear. And she's right, she could. My brother don't even remember the name of the bank. Doesn't have any of her account information. And she did not give him a card. She had already told my brother she a credit card debt. And her car was down. So she'd been driving a family member's car because hers was broken. So I told my sister the best that she could hope for is the girl's going to pay off all her debt with my brother's money, and she's going to buy herself a car. And hopefully she'll give him what's left. Because in all honesty, I think he owes my sister something because she took him in when he had nothing for like 3 or 4 months. And he lied to her or misled her about some things, you know? And my sister wants to move. She wants to move to an apartment that's a little bit more convenient for public transportation when she stops driving, because she's not comfortable driving now, just like I don't really like to drive, you know? That's why I never drive. I haven't driven for a vacation in probably 10 years. I either fly or take the train. Sometimes both. So we thought it would be fair that if he made sure she got into a new apartment, something more convenient to public transportation, because she kind of lives out on the outskirts of Baltimore as well. And that wouldn't be too much. First month's rent, security deposit, couple $100 in her pocket, about $5,000. I think that would be a fair price to give her in exchange for putting a roof over his head when he was running away from his responsibilities. So that's what's going on. My brother did ask my sister if she thought that he should give me and my daughter something. And I told my sister, he don't have to give us nothing. Can't miss what was never mine. You know, he don't have to give us nothing. But if he do, I'll take it. You know, but he don't have to. And I said, plus, you don't even know if he gonna have anything left. So, basically, kind of waiting to see how all this goes. Now, I told my sister that check should clear between 3 and 5 business days. And my brother's phone got turned off. And that girl left his phone off for a whole week after she put that check in her bank. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I guess we just have to wait and see. But the whole thing is just ridiculous. And my brother is a fucking idiot. Stepfather and step-grandmother, they should have left the house to my sister. They should have left it to her, because she would have did whatever she had to do to preserve the family legacy. But she's not real blood. So they left it to my brother. Yeah, he's a nice guy. No, he's if you called him and needed something and he had it, he would give it to you. If my sister or myself called him and said, I need $1,000, do you have it? If he had it back in the day when he did, yeah, he would have done it. I never asked, but he would have done it. But man, just some of the choices he's made. And I still wonder, does it have anything to do with the way my mother just walked away one day? But it seems Sagittarius men are like this. So did all their mothers walk away? I don't know, but my brother is just a piece of work. An absolute piece of work. So for his sake, I hope this works out well, because I think he finally, after all these years, he finally burnt the bridge with my sister. Because see, I would have never let him come live with me. Nope. Because he just too closed-mouthed and too shady for me. But, you know, my sister's different. She's all about family. So, I guess we have to wait and see what happens. But, let's hope he don't need her again, because I think this made her done. She felt like what she did was not appreciated, and she just feels unappreciated, and I can't say I blame her. Anyway, that's it. Other than that, grandbaby's fine. Daughter still likes her job. Daughter got a haircut, a little shortcut. What's that woman's name? Tina, somebody or other. She got a little cut like that, and oh my God, it looks so cute on her. So, yep, that's it. So in the meantime, I'll see y'all in another couple of months. Maybe I'll take you with me on my train trip to Chicago. In the meantime, take care, stay blessed. I'll see you soon. Bye.